I always felt like I was injured at the right time. I was injured in 1996, and in 1990, that's when the Americans with Disabilities Act was enacted. And that's legislation, essentially civil rights legislation, that provides some incredible opportunities and laws that help individuals with disabilities in the United States of America. I can't even imagine what life would have looked like before the Americans with Disabilities Act. I can't even imagine what life would have looked like back in the 70s or the 60s or the 50s for individuals who are paralyzed. Even back in the 40s and 50s, the life expectancy of somebody who, like me, had a spinal cord injury was about a year post-injury. And typically, because of the medical science at the time, many of them, because of secondary complications associated with their spinal cord injury, didn't make it. They passed away. And so we've come a long way in terms of not only laws, but we've come a long way in terms of medicine to be able to help individuals with paralysis lead very healthy lives. Many of us are living now into our 70s and living full lives as individuals with paralysis. And so we've come a long way. There are a lot of good things that have happened, but there's so much more work to be done. And I felt like at some point, even in my artistic journeys, that I needed to focus a bit more attention to this world of disability. I needed to go a little bit further in my exploration of what disability really meant to me. I needed to understand where we were at culturally with this idea of disability, because I want to make this world a better place and perhaps an easier place for other people of all types of disabilities. And there are all types of disabilities. You have physical disabilities like me, or individuals who have amputations. You have sensory disabilities, individuals who are deaf or blind or have low vision, neurodiverse individuals. Mental illness is considered a disability. If you've ever had a moment where, for whatever reason, you can't get out of bed, that is a disabling experience. And so when we think about this broad spectrum of disability, we know that we need to create systems, we need to create mindsets, we need to really rethink what disability is and recontextualize it. And that is what led me to ARTrageous. And when I initially learned about ARTrageous, I actually went to a screening of Crip Camp.
Even when we were that young, we helped empower each other. It was allowing us to recognize that the status quo is not what it needed to be.
The world always wants us dead. We live with that reality.
At the time, so many kids just like me were being sent to institutions. It was just a continual struggle.
Most disabled people, like myself, are unable to use public transportation.
We needed a civil rights law of our own.
Which is a phenomenal film. It tells about the history of disability. And it was in that moment at a Sundance screening that I said, I need to get involved with this organization called ARTrageous. And ARTrageous is a nonprofit organization that works with artists with disabilities. So it's essentially taking two of my favorite things. It's taking the arts and it's taking disability, and what it's doing is it's creating programming for artists with disabilities so that it, again, holds the door open, allows people with disabilities to have a seat at the table, to showcase their amazing creations. And so often, individuals with disabilities don't get that opportunity. We have our mentoring program, which is where we pair an emerging artist with a disability with a professional artist. And this is a great opportunity to create professional development. And so what does development look like? Well, if an artist wants to become a professional artist, this is a really cool opportunity to kind of learn the ropes and see what that might look like. The other program we have is what's called the Artist Working Group, and that's where we bring 6 artists with disabilities together to explore a topic around disability. So that topic might be socioeconomic status, That topic might be the environment. That topic this year is joy, disability joy. And how does that interact? How does that work with the idea of disability and living with the disability and experiencing these things? And these artists come together and create artworks, both collective and individual, that kind of talk to these themes that are explored in the working group. And so this has been an incredible opportunity for me to engage with some incredibly talented artists, to engage with some really talented voices. And that's my job. I get to connect with people with disabilities, and I get to connect with artists with disabilities like myself. And this is a really amazing job to have, where I can live in the best of these two worlds, my two loves, which is the arts and disability. There are so many artists in this world who have disabilities. Some that we know of, like we can think of, Frida Kahlo or Stevie Wonder or Lady Gaga. But there are so many other artists. That we don't know of, who have disabilities. And I think it's amazing to see the work that they're creating. And how horrible would it be if we lived in a world that didn't allow for those voices to express themselves and to be heard and to have a seat at the table with all of these other non-disabled artists. For me, immediately after my rock climbing accident, I wondered if I would still be able to be an artist. I wondered if I could still draw. I wondered if I would still be able to make film. I was going to school to learn how to make film when I was injured, and I needed to figure out if that was still possible. And so what changes? What changes for somebody who has a disability and wants to be an artist? Well, you're still an artist. And for me, what I found was that what I brought to the arts, because of my disability, was so much more enriching. Maybe perhaps because now I had this second take, this ability to do the arts again, to know that I could still do the arts. And also, it was very gratifying to figure out how to adapt the art form to my disability. So how do I go out and film? There's nothing more satisfying than talking to somebody and saying, I'll be there to shoot this interview with you, like we're doing now. And all of a sudden you roll in and they're kind of looking at you, and here's this guy in a wheelchair, and you're wondering, okay, how is this gonna work? And you set up the equipment, you create a great end film, and it changes people's perceptions of disability. Through my art, I'm continually challenging myself. I'm continually pushing myself to see how far I can go, not only with my art form, but also with my disability. I'm learning about myself as an artist. I'm learning about myself as a person with a disability. So what I love about the arts and disability is that both are these avenues where creativity can occur. In the arts, we're constantly using the term thinking outside of the box and using creativity to find new ways to tell stories and to paint pictures and to make films. Well, in the world of disability, we're looking for new and creative ways to make homes more accessible, to make opportunities more available to people who move a little bit differently or look a little bit differently or have a different way of moving through the world. And there are so many different types of disabilities, right? And so we're thinking about, how do we light a home? How do we light it for somebody who has some sensory considerations? How do we create barrier-free entry into businesses? How do I go to a restaurant and not have to ask for help getting in and out? So where do we go from here? How do we make this world a more accessible world? How do we really embody the social model of disability. It's not going to be an easy road. It's going to take all of us coming together to really rethink what disability means. The disability movement is a civil rights movement. And like many other movements, it takes a lot of people working together to change perceptions that have often been negative perceptions. And I think if we can begin to think in new ways about what disability means, we can begin to not only make these positive changes in the world, but we can also make positive changes within ourselves. And I think that's going to be really important as we begin to create these new landscapes. I mean, think how far we've come with things like smoking on airplanes. You don't see that anymore, right? Think about seatbelts. They used to not exist. So change does happen. Women can vote now. We have this incredible opportunity to right the wrongs that have always existed and make the world a much better place. But what we first have to do is acknowledge that there is a problem. And right now, the problem is how we see disability in this world. And I think a lot of it is just getting to know somebody with a disability, learning about disability, learning that it's not a scary thing. It took me having a major life accident to come around to that idea that disability was okay. I'm still the same person I was when I was a little kid drawing and making home movies. Now I just move around on wheels. I am no different than I was before my accident. And you're gonna find that pretty much everybody with a disability, they're just like you. I know that it's weird that I have to say that, but that's something that has to be reiterated over and over again, that disability is a normal part of the human experience. It is a part of the human experience. Again, we're all going to encounter or have a disabling experience in our life. And so we really need to be thinking about that to create this world so that it can accommodate, so that it can be inclusive, so that we can now have freedoms that we didn't have before. And I think that's pretty great. I often get asked if I could go back and go up on that mountain and rappel, knowing what I know now about my life as a person with a disability, would I do it again? Would I go back and have the same accident all over again? And my answer is, I absolutely would, because the person that I have become as a result of my accident is a person that I want to be. It is a person that I love. It is a person that I am very proud to be. Each day I'm engaging in this world, and it's a world that I don't think I would have ever known were it not for my spinal cord injury. My injury has given me perhaps an empathy that I wouldn't have had I not been paralyzed. And that's not to say that it hasn't been a hard journey. And that's not to say that each day isn't difficult, but it has given me the fire to want to make this world a better place. It's kind of given me a cause, and that keeps me going.